I never thought I would find myself standing in the doorway of our bedroom, heart racing, as I read the words that shattered my world. "Can't wait to see you tonight," it said, and in that instant I felt the ground beneath me crumble. The text message glowed brightly on her phone screen, a beacon of betrayal that illuminated the darkest corners of my mind. My wife, the woman I had built my life with, was cheating on me with someone I had never even considered a rival, an escape room manager. It was a Saturday evening and the house was quiet. I was supposed to be picking up dinner, but instead, I was frozen in place, grappling with the reality that my marriage was a house of cards, and the wind had just knocked it down. I could hear the faint sounds of laughter drifting from the living room, where she was probably scrolling through her social media, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. My mind raced back to the moments we had shared, the intimacy we had built over the years. How could she do this to us? The memory of her laughter echoed in my ears, but it was no longer sweet. It became a taunt, a reminder of what I had lost. I felt a rush of anger, hot and visceral, coursing through my veins. I wanted to scream, to confront her right then and there, but a part of me hesitated. What would I say? How could I articulate the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me? Betrayal, anger, confusion, and a deep sense of inadequacy all tangled together in a chaotic knot. I stepped back, closing the bedroom door as if to shield myself from the truth. I needed to think. I could hear my breath quickening, my heart pounding in my chest like a drum. I felt like a fool, a man who had trusted his partner implicitly, only to find that trust had been a lie. The thought of her with another man, of her laughter shared with someone else, sent a fresh wave of nausea coursing through me. What did he have that I did? The escape room manager, a name I had heard in passing but never paid much attention to. A young guy, probably in his late 20s, with a charm that drew people in like moths to a flame. I could picture him with his easy smile, his confident demeanor, and it made my blood boil. I was older, more established, and yet here I was, alone in my pain while he was out there, reveling in the attention of my wife. I paced the room, my mind racing. I could confront her, demand answers, but what would that achieve? Would I get the closure I needed, or would it only lead to more heartache? The anger inside me began to transform, coiling into something darker, something that craved satisfaction. If she could betray me so easily, then maybe I could find a way to make him feel the same sting. I thought about the escape room he managed, the place where they had met. It was a trendy spot, popular among couples looking for a fun night out. I had always thought it was a clever idea, a way to engage people in puzzles and teamwork. But now it felt like a trap. A trap that had ensnared my wife and turned her into someone I hardly recognized. As I stood there, the gears in my mind began to turn. What if I could sabotage his games? What if I could make him the one who couldn't escape? The thought sent a thrill through me, a rush of adrenaline that momentarily drowned out the pain. It was a dangerous idea, but perhaps that was exactly what I needed. I could take control of this situation, turn the tables, and make him suffer the way I was suffering. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the path I was about to embark on. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my pride. I would become the architect of his downfall, the storm he never saw coming. The thought filled me with a newfound sense of purpose. I walked back to the living room, my resolve hardening with each step. I would find a way to make him regret ever crossing my path. The days that followed my discovery were a blur of emotions. I wore a mask of normalcy, pretending everything was fine while the truth gnawed at me from the inside out. I could hear my wife's laughter echoing through the house, but it felt like a distant memory. Each smile, each moment we shared felt tainted by the knowledge of her betrayal. I was a ghost in my own life, haunted by the image of her with him. I spent sleepless nights lying awake, the darkness of my room mirroring the turmoil in my heart. I would replay our last few months together, searching for signs, hints that I had missed. I felt like a fool for trusting her, for believing that our love was unbreakable. But beneath the hurt and anger, something else began to take shape, a cold, calculating desire for revenge. Why should I be the one to suffer? Why should I be left with the shattered pieces of our marriage while he enjoyed her company? The more I thought about it, the more the idea of sabotage consumed me. I had been a loyal husband, and yet here I was, betrayed by the woman I had loved so fiercely. It wasn't fair. I wanted him to feel the sting of betrayal, to question his worth, just as I had been forced to do. I began to research escape rooms, not just the one she frequented, but the whole industry. I immersed myself in the intricacies of game design, understanding the mechanics that made them engaging and challenging. I learned about puzzles, themes, and the psychology behind the games. The more knowledge I gained, the more empowered I felt. I was no longer just a victim, I was becoming a strategist, a player in this twisted game of revenge. I visited the escape room where he worked, under the guise of a curious customer. The place was vibrant and filled with laughter, but I felt like a wolf among sheep. I watched as teams of players navigated through the challenges, their excitement palpable. But my eyes were drawn to him, the escape room manager, the man who had stolen my wife's affection. He was charismatic, effortlessly charming, and the way he interacted with the customers filled me with rage. It was infuriating to see how easily he captivated people, including my wife. I couldn't help but feel inadequate in comparison. Here I was, a man with a stable job, a home, and a life built on trust, yet I felt like I was losing everything to this young, carefree guy. But that feeling of inadequacy quickly morphed into a burning desire to regain control. I wanted to show him that he wasn't untouchable, that I had a hand in this game too. I began to formulate a plan. I would get inside his head, disrupt his carefully curated experiences, and turn his escape room into a nightmare. I imagined the chaos that would ensue, players frustrated, puzzles unsolvable, and the once invincible manager left scrambling to fix the mess. The thought brought a twisted smile to my face. Revenge would be my art, and I would be the artist painting a portrait of his downfall. As I plotted, I felt a strange sense of clarity. I had been consumed by anger and heartbreak, but now I had a purpose. I was no longer just a victim, I was a man on a mission. I started to gather information on the escape room's schedule, the games they offered, and the staff who worked there. I wanted to know everything: who was in charge of what, the flow of each game, and the weaknesses I could exploit. I also began to think about how I could manipulate the situation. Perhaps I could plant false clues, or even sabotaging the equipment used in the games. I envisioned scenarios where players would be unable to escape, where the thrill of the game would turn into frustration and chaos. I wanted him to feel the pressure, the weight of his failure. I wanted him to know that he had crossed the wrong man. The more I planned, the more excited I became. I felt alive again, energized by the thought of taking back control. I would not only make him regret his choices, but also remind my wife of the man she had chosen to betray. I would show her what true pain felt like, and maybe, just maybe, she would realize what she had lost. As I sat in my car outside the escape room one evening, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the culmination of my plans. This was just the beginning. I was ready to unleash my revenge, and I would not stop until he felt the full force of my wrath. With my plans taking shape, I felt a surge of adrenaline as I prepared for my first act of sabotage. I had learned the schedule of the escape room and knew when the busiest nights were. Friday evenings were prime time, and it was the perfect opportunity to make my mark. I decided that my first target would be their most popular game, the heist, a thrilling caper where players had to steal a priceless jewel from a high-security vault. It was the kind of game that drew in couples, families, and groups of friends, all eager to test their wits against the clock. I arrived at the escape room early that Friday, my heart pounding with anticipation. I had researched the layout and even managed to find a way to slip in unnoticed through a back entrance during a staff shift change. The staff were busy preparing for the night, and I blended in with the chaos, pretending to be a new hire or a friend of one of the employees. As I wandered through the hallways, I examined the props and puzzles with a keen eye. The jewel itself was a well-crafted piece of glass that sparkled under the dim lights. I could see how it would captivate the players, drawing them into the narrative of the game. But I had other plans for it. I snuck into the game room where the heist was set up and quickly assessed the security measures. There was a small lockbox that contained the jewel, and I noticed that. The lock was a simple combination. I had come prepared, equipped with a small toolkit and a plan. I worked quickly, disabling the lock mechanism and replacing the jewel with a cheap imitation I had brought along. The real jewel would be hidden away, a secret I would hold close until the moment was right. As I finished my task, I felt a rush of satisfaction. I imagined the players arriving, excited and ready to escape. They would be met with confusion when they realized they couldn't complete the game. It would be chaos, and I would be there to witness it all unfold. Once I had completed my sabotage, I slipped back out the way I came, trying to keep my heart rate steady. I felt like a ghost, moving through the shadows unseen and undetected. I returned to my car, parked a few blocks away, and waited. The anticipation was electric. I could hardly contain my excitement as I saw groups of players arriving, chatting animatedly as they made their way inside. As the hour approached, I could feel the tension building in my chest. I imagined the laughter that would soon turn to frustration, the thrill of the game morphing into disappointment. I had never felt so alive, so powerful. I was orchestrating a symphony of chaos, and I was the conductor. When the first group emerged from the heist, I was ready. I had positioned myself nearby, pretending to be an innocent bystander. I watched as the players exited the room, their faces a mix of confusion and frustration. They were supposed to feel victorious, but instead they looked defeated. What happened in there? One of the players exclaimed, his voice rising in disbelief. We couldn't find the jewel, the lock was broken. I felt a thrill run through me as I listened to their complaints. It was working. The escape room manager, my rival, emerged shortly after, his face a mask of concern. I could see the panic setting in as he rushed to reassure the players, trying to smooth over the chaos I had unleashed. I watched him closely, taking in the way he struggled to regain control. He was flustered, his usual charm slipping away as he faced the angry crowd. I felt a sense of satisfaction wash over me. This was just the beginning. I would continue to chip away at his confidence, one sabotage at a time. In the days that followed, I executed my plan with precision. Each week, I targeted a different escape room game, disrupting the puzzles and creating unforeseen challenges that left players frustrated and confused. I learned how to manipulate the props, how to create distractions, and how to make the games unsolvable without anyone suspecting foul play. The escape room's reputation began to wane. Players started sharing their experiences online, and the once bustling venue was now faced with negative reviews. I could see the stress building in the escape room manager. I would catch glimpses of him during my visits, his confidence eroding with each passing week. He was beginning to crack, and I reveled in it. But as I watched him struggle, I couldn't help but feel a flicker of doubt creeping into my heart. Was this really what I wanted? To destroy him completely? I had started this revenge quest out of pain and anger, but now I was beginning to question my motivations. I didn't want to become a monster, yet the thrill of sabotage was intoxicating. Still, I pushed those thoughts aside. I was in too deep now. I had to see this through to the end. I wanted him to feel the same betrayal I had felt, to understand what it meant to have everything you love stripped away. I was committed to my path, and nothing would deter me. The tension in the air was palpable as I approached the escape room for what I intended to be the final act of my revenge. Each step felt heavy with anticipation, my heart racing as I prepared for the confrontation I had been secretly craving. I had been watching him unravel for weeks, and now it was time to face him directly. I wanted him to see the man behind the sabotage, to understand that I was not just a faceless rival but a husband scorned. That evening, I arrived early as I had done so many times before, but this time I had no intention of hiding in the shadows. I entered the lobby, the familiar sounds of laughter and excitement surrounding me, but my focus was singular, him. I spotted him at the front desk, engaging with a group of eager players. His smile was strained and the sparkle in his eyes had dimmed. I could see the toll my actions had taken on him, and I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. As the group entered the escape room, I approached the desk, my heart pounding in my chest. "Hey, is there a chance I could speak with you for a moment?" I asked, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil inside me. He looked up, his expression shifting from friendly to guarded. "Sure, what's on your mind?" he replied, but there was an edge to his tone, a hint of wariness. "I've been coming here a lot lately," I began, leaning against the desk. "I've noticed some issues with the games. A lot of players have been leaving disappointed." I watched his reaction closely, gauging the tension in his posture. "Yeah, we've had a few hiccups, but we're working on it," he said, his voice tight. I could tell he was trying to maintain his composure, but there was an underlying current of frustration that intrigued me. "Working on it. It seems like every week something goes wrong." I pressed, watching as he shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe it's time to consider that something deeper is at play." His eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering across his face. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, feeling the moment of truth closing in. "I mean, maybe someone is sabotaging your games. Someone who knows how to play the system, someone who's had enough of your charm stealing away their life." He straightened, a mixture of confusion and anger crossing his features. "Are you implying that someone is deliberately messing with my business? Why would anyone do that?" I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "Because they're hurt, because they're angry, because they're tired of being betrayed." I paused, allowing my words to sink in. "How does it feel to know that someone is out there plotting your downfall?" His expression shifted, realization dawning on him. "Wait a minute. Are you saying—" "Yes," I interrupted, my heart racing. "I'm saying that I know about you and my wife. I know what you've done." The color drained from his face, and for a moment we stood there in silence, the weight of my accusation hanging heavily in the air. I could see the gears turning in his mind as he processed my words. It was a moment of vulnerability, and I relished it. "Look, I didn't mean to hurt anyone," he stammered, his bravado wavering. "It just happened. I didn't plan for any of this." "Didn't plan?" I echoed, my voice rising. "You didn't plan to break up a marriage. You didn't plan to invade my life. You think that just because you're charming and have a fun job you can take what's mine." He opened his mouth to respond, but I could see he was struggling to find the right words. I had him on the ropes, and I wanted to drive the point home. "You think you're untouchable, don't you? You strut around here like you own the place, and yet look at you now. Look at what you've become." His eyes flashed with anger. "You think you can just come in here and threaten me? I didn't steal your wife. She chose to be with me." "Did she?" I fired back, my voice laced with venom. "Or did you manipulate her, charm her, and make her forget the life we built together? You think this is a game, don't you? Well, let me tell you, I'm the one holding the cards now." He stepped closer, his anger palpable. "You need to back off. This isn't just about you. You can't just ruin my business because you're hurt." "Ruin?" I scoffed. "You mean expose the truth? You're the one ruining lives, not me. I'm just making sure you face the consequences of your actions." The tension between us was electric, and I could see the fight in him. But deep down, I knew I had the upper hand. This was my moment to finally confront the man who had invaded my life, and I was ready to unleash everything I had been holding back. As we squared off, I felt a mix of adrenaline and satisfaction. This was more than just revenge, it was a reckoning. I wanted him to know that I was not someone to be trifled with, that I would not allow him to take what was rightfully mine without a fight. "Enjoy your escape room while you can," I said, my voice low and menacing. "Because I'm just getting started." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, stunned and vulnerable. I could feel the weight of my actions settling in, but I pushed the doubt aside. I had shown him who was in control, and I was not done yet. After our confrontation, I found myself enveloped in a whirlwind of emotions. The adrenaline from the encounter still coursed through my veins, but beneath that exhilarating high lay a deep sense of unease. I had confronted the escape room manager, the man who had taken my wife from me, and laid bare my pain and anger. Yet as I drove home that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had crossed a line from which there might be no return. I replayed the confrontation in my mind, dissecting every word, every tone. I had felt so powerful in that moment, but now, in the solitude of my car, doubt began to creep in. Was I really achieving anything by sabotaging his business, Or was I simply becoming the villain in this story? I had started my quest for revenge with the intention of reclaiming my dignity, but now I was questioning whether I was losing myself in the process. When I arrived home, the house felt cold and empty, a stark contrast to the chaos of my thoughts. I sat in the living room, staring at the blank TV screen, my mind racing. I thought about my wife and the life we had built together. I had loved her fiercely, and now that love felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by betrayal and anger. I could still picture her smile, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her day. But now I couldn't help but feel like I was looking at a stranger. I picked up my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I landed on her name. My finger hovered over the call button, and for a moment I considered reaching out to her. But what would I say? How could I possibly articulate the storm raging inside me? I wanted to confront her about the affair, to demand answers, but I also feared the vulnerability that would come with that conversation. Instead, I set the phone down and buried my head in my hands, grappling with the reality of my situation. My plan for revenge had spiraled out of control, and I was losing sight of who I was in the process. I had become consumed by anger, and I wondered if I was losing the very essence of myself, the man who had once been her partner, the man who had trusted her completely. The next few days passed in a blur. I continued my campaign against the escape room manager, but each act of sabotage felt less satisfying than the last. I had set up traps, created misleading clues, and even tampered with the puzzles to ensure that players would leave frustrated. While I took pleasure in watching him struggle, I couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling of guilt that accompanied my actions. Each time I saw the disappointment on the faces of players, I felt a pang of remorse. They were innocent, caught up in a game they had come to enjoy, and here I was, ruining their experience for my own selfish reasons. I began to question whether I truly wanted revenge, or if I was just trying to fill the void left by my wife's betrayal. I had been so focused on making him suffer that I had neglected to address my own pain. I realized that while I was busy inflicting chaos on the escape room, I was also inflicting chaos on myself. I was spiraling into a darkness that I couldn't seem to escape, and I had to confront the fact that I was becoming the very thing I despised. One evening, after another bout of sabotaging a game, I found myself sitting in my car outside the escape room, staring blankly at the entrance. It was a moment of reckoning. I had to decide what I truly wanted. Did I want to continue this path of destruction, or did I want to find a way to heal? I thought about my marriage and the love I once had for my wife. I missed her despite everything. I missed the life we had built together, the laughter we shared, and the dreams we had for our future. As I sat there, I realized that revenge would not bring me peace. It would not heal the wounds of betrayal. It would only deepen them. I was caught in a cycle of anger and resentment, and if I continued down this path, I would lose everything: my integrity, my sense of self, and perhaps even the chance to rebuild my life. I took a deep breath, the weight of my decisions pressing down on me. I needed to confront the reality of my situation, to face my wife and the truth of what had happened. I had to stop hiding behind the facade of revenge and start taking steps toward healing. Driving home that night, I felt a sense of clarity begin to wash over me. I would not allow this affair to define me, nor would I let it dictate my actions moving forward. I would confront my wife and the escape room manager, but not with the intention of revenge. Instead, I would seek closure, understanding, and perhaps a path toward forgiveness. It was time to reclaim my life, not through sabotage, but through honesty and confrontation. I didn't know what the future would hold, but I was ready to face it, no matter how painful. The next day, I found myself standing outside my wife's favorite cafe, my heart pounding in my chest. I had spent the night wrestling with my thoughts, going back and forth about whether I was making the right decision. But I knew I couldn't put it off any longer. I had to confront her, to lay bare my feelings and find out where we stood. As I stepped inside, the familiar aroma of coffee filled the air, but it did little to calm my nerves. I spotted her sitting at a corner table, her gaze focused on her phone. She looked up as I approached, her expression shifting from surprise to concern. I could see the moment realization dawned on her. She knew something was off. "Hey," she said softly, a hint of apprehension in her voice. "Is everything okay?" I took a deep breath, my resolve solidifying. "No, everything is not okay. We need to talk." Her brow furrowed and she nodded, setting her phone aside. "All right, what's on your mind?" I sat down across from her, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. I could see the worry etched on her face, and it reminded me of the love we once shared. "I know about the affair," I said, my voice steady but laced with emotion. Her expression shifted, a flash of guilt crossing her features. Let me finish," I interrupted, holding up a hand. "I've been through a lot since I found out. I confronted him, and I've acted in ways I'm not proud of. I sabotaged his escape room, trying to make him pay for what he did, but it didn't bring me any peace. It only made things worse." The silence that followed felt heavy, and I could see her processing my words. "I'm so sorry," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never wanted to hurt you, it just happened. I didn't know how to stop it." "Why him?" I asked, my voice cracking slightly. "What did he offer that I did?" Looked down, tears welling in her eyes. "I don't know. I was feeling lost and he made me feel alive again, but I realize now that it was a mistake. I never meant to betray you, to throw away everything we built together." As she spoke, I felt a mix of anger and sadness welling up inside me. "You have to understand how much this hurt me. I felt like my whole world was collapsing. I didn't know how to cope, so I tried to hurt him back. But in the end, all I did was hurt myself." She reached across the table, her hand trembling. "I never wanted to lose you. I've been so ashamed of what I did. I didn't know if you would ever forgive me." I took her hand in mine, feeling the warmth of her touch. "Forgiveness isn't something I can give easily. Trust has been broken, and it will take time to rebuild that, but I want to try. I want to find a way forward, even if it's difficult." Her eyes widened in surprise, and I could see the flicker of hope igniting within her. "You really want to try?" "Yes," I said firmly, "but it will take honesty and commitment from both of us. I can't keep living in the shadow of anger and revenge. I want to heal, and I want you to be a part of that process." We spent the next hour talking, laying bare our feelings, our regrets, and our hopes for the future. It was painful, but it was also cathartic. I realized that while the betrayal had cut deep, it had also opened a door to a new beginning. We were at a crossroads, and we had the power to decide which path to take. After our conversation, I felt lighter. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to put in the effort to rebuild our relationship. I still had to confront the escape room manager, but now I was armed with a new perspective. I wouldn't approach him with revenge in my heart. Instead, I would seek closure, not just for him, but for myself as well. A few days later, I found myself back at the escape room, but this time my approach was different. I walked in, my heart steady, and I spotted him behind the desk, looking worn and stressed. He glanced up, his expression shifting from surprise to apprehension when he saw me. "Hey," I said, my voice calm. "Can we talk?" He nodded, wariness evident in his posture. "What do you want?" "I want to clear the air," I said, taking a breath. "I've done a lot of things I'm not proud of to get back at you. I sabotaged your games, and I realize now that it didn't solve anything. It only made things worse for everyone involved." He looked surprised, and I could see the tension in his shoulders ease. "Slightly. I didn't expect you to come here and say that." "I'm not here to fight," I continued. "I want to find a way to move forward for both of us. I know you care about my wife, but I need you to understand the pain you've caused. It's not just about the betrayal, it's about the lives affected by our choices." He nodded slowly, his expression softening. "I never intended to hurt you. I made a mistake and I regret it. I can't take back what happened, but I'm willing to step back and let you both heal." As we spoke, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I was no longer trapped in a cycle of revenge. I was choosing to break free. We shared a moment of understanding, two men caught in a web of choices that had led us to this point. By the time I left the escape room, I felt a weight lifted from my shoulders. I had confronted my demons, sought closure, and opened the door to healing. It wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to rebuild my life, one step at a time. As I drove home, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was ready to embrace the future, to work on my marriage, and to rediscover the love that had once brought us together. The path ahead would be challenging, but I was no longer afraid. I had faced the darkness, and now I was ready to step into the light. In the end, I realized that true strength lies not in revenge, but in forgiveness and the willingness to move forward. And with that, I began to reclaim my life, one day at a time.